right, so to start off the Money Talk session, I'll have everyone give just a brief introduction of who they are, what they do, and what brought them to the conference.
Okay. Hey, I'm Matthew Awesome, and if my face isn't red yet, it will be very soon. But a little bit about me, I'm representing Equitable Advisors. We do full-service financial planning. Sports were a part of my entire life growing up. Just looking to give a little bit of that back, so that's why I'm here.
Hey everyone, I'm Jasmine Brown. I am the founder and director of a nonprofit based out of North Carolina called Facts for Youth, teaching financial literacy to high school students.
Hello everyone, I'm Amobi Okugo, former professional soccer player and founder of A Frugal Athlete, which is like an online financial media platform meant to promote prudent financial practices amongst student athletes and professional athletes.
Great. So on the most fundamental level, how do you each define financial literacy?
So I guess I should start. So financial literacy for me, I think for me it's all about leverage. A lot of people talk about financial literacy. You have to educate yourself, you have to make money, but at the end of the day, it's about leverage. Leverage of information, leverage of management of your finances, leverage when it comes to the freedom. If we have a better knowledge of financial literacy, it allows us to ask better questions. It allows us to make more comfortable decisions, especially as an athlete. There's sometimes where we feel stressed about situations when it comes to money. But when you have leverage, you're able to make decisions from a calmer state of mind.
To kind of piggyback off of that, I would say it's the ability to let money or the lack thereof dictate your happiness, right? So obviously how much you make is different for everybody. And, I might be financially stable having, $60,000 annual income, whereas someone else that could be very stressful or not stressful at all. So it would just be, does money make you happy or not?
I would describe it as, really for me, it's making sure you have the fundamentals covered. It's, do I have, and we'll talk about some of this stuff today, do I have the right things in place depending on where I am along my lifetime frame to meet the goals that I need to accomplish. So,
how does someone go about increasing their financial literacy?
Okay. Part of me wants to say stay off YouTube, but there's a lot of good resources on YouTube. Do your research. There's a lot of resources out there. Talk to people you know. I think the best way to get information is from the people you have surrounding you. They're going to give you an answer. A lot of them have bought their first home already or started their first retirement account. So like he said, kind of leverage the people around you. I think that's a good way to get started.
Coming from the youth perspective, I would say to start young. Unfortunately, especially in Black and brown communities, there's a generational curse of a lack of financial literacy. So starting that conversation at home, because of the nonprofit that I have a lot of knowledge on the fact that financial literacy is not being taught at home. It's not being taught at school. So where is it being taught? And like you said, with people, oftentimes you learn from experience and you learn from what people did that they shouldn't have done. And we'll talk about it later, credit cards. I had a college roommate get a credit card and just blow through it, had no idea what credit meant. Didn't know that was not free money on the Brickyard that she got in college. So, yeah, start young.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both what Matthew and Jasmine said. Fundamentals, everyone wants to shoot threes like Steph Curry, but no one can make a basic layup or free throw. So fundamentals and basics, and the better you start at a younger age, it allows for you to make those mistakes. You teach kids they have to touch the hot stove to know it's hot, but you don't want them to burn themselves. So if you start young, you allow yourself to make some room from your experiences, but if you can get the foundation right by understanding the fundamentals, you're able to grow exponentially.
What does a realistic budget look like?
It's all relative, it's relative to how much money you're making. I think a lot of times, specifically with athletes, as you make more money, your expenses, unfortunately, go up with it. So you have to understand your budget, much like you understand the syllabus when it comes to school, much like a workout. You can't just do all legs, you can't just do all upper body. You got to disperse it evenly. But I think the budget is everything.
Yeah, we're going to keep talking about fundamentals today since we're talking about financial literacy and starting at the basic, right? And the basic, I have a term in my book called the money feed. And the way that I describe it to high school students is, you check your social media feeds every day. Do you know where your money's going? Where is it coming from? What are you spending the most on? These kids don't even realize how much money they're spending on fast food. So getting them to really take a look at that and saying, okay, this is how much money I've made, this is how much I've spent, and what do I have left over, if anything, is kind of where I would say is the basis to start for budgeting. And that's going to look different for everybody. Obviously, high school students and college athletes don't have as much expenses as adults in the real world, living a job and all that stuff. So it's going to be different for everyone. There is no set budget. Your budget's going to look different than my budget. It's going to look different than your budget. And so you just really have to work with what you have and what you make.
This is becoming collaborative because I agree with what they said. I would also add, set realistic expectations. You're going to go out some nights. You're going to do things. You're going to have months where you spend more money. So know your tendencies, account for those in your planning, budget for those, but build those fundamentals. See what you're spending money on, track that, but have some fun. Don't just keep yourself stern and eating ramen all the time.
So with that, how much debt do you believe is too much debt?
I have no answer to that. It really depends. Some people are comfortable with lots of debt. They'll leverage huge home purchases and stuff like that. It really just depends. Some people don't want a credit card. Some people understand that's a good way to get where they want to be in life. So, it really depends. For me, I've never liked a ton of debt. It's made me uncomfortable, so I tend to err away from it, but it really just depends. Don't make yourself uncomfortable.
Yeah, I also don't think there's one set answer. Like, I can't give you a dollar amount of how much is too much debt, because like I said before, what's comfortable to you might be really uncomfortable to someone else, especially when it comes to money. And I guess my answer that I could come up with is, what's going to make you uncomfortable to have to pay back? Like, if I'm not making this much money, but I have this much debt and I'm stressed out, then that's probably that's too much debt.
Yeah, some people say there's good debt versus bad debt, whether it's a mortgage or you're paying for school, but just the concept of owing somebody money just doesn't sit right. But it's all relative, and as long as you have a plan to pay it back, I think you'll be in a good situation.
So as college students, it can be a taboo subject to talk about finances, but starting young can also help in the long run, as you had mentioned. So how do you begin investing as a college student? What tips would you have there?
First and foremost, invest in yourself. As a college student, you're not making as much money. I know there's a panel just recently about NIL, so now student athletes are able to make money. So always at least pay yourself first. You can't drink from an empty cup. So whether you make $1,000 per deal, at least 100 of it has to go to investing in yourself. Whatever that looks like, it's up to you. But we're not asking student athletes to break the bank to invest in themselves. We know their situations. I think it's just important to have them have the mindset of compound interest, and starting earlier will lead to exponential gains over time.
Yeah, I had a conversation earlier about just the stock market in general and how it can be very stressful for some people. But keeping that money in there, especially starting younger, if you look at a graph, the stock market is always upward trending, right? There are dips, there are recessions and all that, but from 1920 to now, the overall trend is upward for stock markets. So my dad terms it play money, right? Have your play money that you're not going to be stressed out if you lose. Put it into something and just watch it grow. Don't touch it and you have that ability when you're younger and you're not needing to take money out for retirement yet or anything like that, to put something in there and just let it make the money for you. And you sit back and you just watch it and you're chilling, and that's the fun part, right? So play money, have play money. But also use this time now to do your research and to look at some stuff that you're interested in investing in. With Airbnb and home rentals and stuff like that on the rise, there's a lot more ways that you can invest that are not the stock market. So, look into some of those things that you're interested in, and I'd say go from there.
Yeah, a quick question. Does anyone know what Robinhood is? Most of you guys? Yeah, I remember I found that freshman year of college. made some option trade, did fantastic on it, and then spent the next 6 months blowing every single dime I put into an investment account. So my message is be consistent, do your research, buy things that you see around you that you know are good companies. And obviously with college athletes getting more compensation now, be consistent. Maybe you're putting something in a month, but just buy the things you know and stick with it. So.
And I'm going to add to that too, especially when it comes to college students and high school students in my workshops. The main question I get asked is, well, what should I invest in? As a high school student, a college student, you don't know the research on these big companies, or you're not interested in joining like the cannabis that's like now going to be up and booming here soon. What do you know? What do you own? What are you buying a lot of? Invest in that. If you're interested in Apple and you have an iPhone and AirPods and an Apple Watch, like invest into Apple, because they're going to keep coming out with stuff and you're going to keep buying it. Right? So what do you know? It doesn't have to be so taboo to where you're getting into these companies that you've never heard of before. Just pick an oil company and invest in that. Gas prices are insane, right? Maybe not invest in airlines right now because prices are up and a lot of people are stopping to travel. So, go with the market, go with the trends, go with what you know and what you're interested in.
Should college students have credit cards, and what would your biggest advice be there?
Yes, if you have the discipline, no otherwise. Little story on me, I started a moving company in college and needed to get some things, and they were like, well, you don't have a credit score. So I wasn't able to get the things that I was trying to get. So for that situation, it would have been nice. But I mean, there's good examples and bad examples, and know yourself. If it makes sense for you, then don't just think of it as free money and start traveling everywhere and buying all types of things. So if you believe that you're capable of handling that responsibility early on, then I think it's a good opportunity. If not, maybe wait a little bit. So.
Okay, so a couple of things here. First, if you go to the grocery store and you're going to check out and you see that little aisle that's got like the chapstick and the candy and the magazines, and you always need to buy something from there, you're an impulse buyer. Do not get a credit card. Now, credit cards can really work for your favor. Now, I got my first credit card when I was younger. My dad was a financial advisor, so I understood what that came with. So if you have the knowledge behind what a credit card is, and you understand that, yes, I'm going to buy something now for $500, but if I don't pay that back for another 8-9 months, I'm probably spending more like $575, then you can understand, and that's when you can go ahead and get it. But you have to have that knowledge behind it. I would say, especially for college students, all these credit cards have different buy-in options, or like the Sheets card, you get extra amount off for gas, or if you travel a lot and you get points, if you travel a lot, then get a credit card where you can earn airline miles. You can make it work for yourself, but again, if you're an impulse buyer, I would say it's a no-fly zone, no pun intended.
Yeah, I would just say it's within reason. I think if you were to get a credit card, definitely have it secured with a limit on it. And then just have a plan in place. And then most importantly, just know the terms. A lot of college athletes, actually not even college athletes, just people in general don't know the terms of the credit card and the statements, APY versus APR and different things like that, interest rate. So if you are going to get a credit card, make sure it's secured. I know there's a couple different fintech apps that allow for that, but have a plan in place beforehand.
So a common theme is not having the knowledge behind it. So what would be the biggest, most crucial piece that you would want someone to know before getting a credit card if they do not have the knowledge?
How credit scores are determined, payback options, what to do when you're delinquent, different things like that. Just all the terms if you don't pay on time, most definitely.
Yeah, definitely how credit scores work. You'd be surprised one missed payment, how many points that can drop your credit score, and then it is much harder to raise your credit score than it is for it to go down. And then I had another thought and I lost it, so if I remember it, I'll get back.
Yeah, I would echo all that, and know what happens if you miss a payment or you miss a month, because that can ramp up pretty quickly.
So how important is an emergency savings fund?
Must have. I think, and again, it goes back to like comfort level. Some people like 3 months of expenses. Some people like 6. Some people are like, I want to have a whole year to cover everything if something happened. So again, it really comes down to what you're comfortable with. But it absolutely is important to give yourself that protection should you need to draw on that. So I think it's an absolute.
So I really like these questions because it really does bring financial literacy to a basic level, which is what I do with the high school students. So I ask high school students, so what do you think an emergency fund is? And they'll be like, in case I have to go to the emergency room. And I was like, yes, that's an example, but a rainy day fund. So something that you might not expect, or you might not add it into your budget because you can't expect that to happen. I have an example. I got a speeding ticket one time. I won't tell you how fast I was going, but got a speeding ticket, and it obviously was not put into my budget that I was going to have to pay like $400 for this speeding ticket. But an emergency savings fund on the side is just money put that if something were to happen, you wouldn't have this added stress of, I don't have enough money to cover that expense. That's really how I explain it. So like that speeding ticket, and I was in high school at the time. So if I didn't have that money set aside, then I wouldn't have had that to, ease the stress. And an emergency is going to look different for everybody. For high school students, it's they drop their phone and the screen cracks. For families, it's, their child had to go, broken bone, had to go to the emergency room. Stuff that, I'm not planning that my kid's going to get sick, or I'm not planning that my dog's going to whatever. So just money set aside. You don't have to worry about it. It's there just in case you need it. So I agree with you. It's an absolute must-have.
Yeah, emergency fund is mandatory, especially for athletes. There's things that you realize you don't pay for until you're in the situation. So 6 months, 12 months, I think, especially in soccer, seasons go, like the transfer window when you can get to a new team, it's like every 6 months. So you have to have an emergency fund to last at least for 6 months. I was a free agent 1 year, and you realize, all right, I'm going to get picked up, and then you start paying for Cobra. That first month, you're like, okay. Second month, by the third month, you're like, so if you don't have an emergency fund, different things like that add up. And I talked about it earlier, leverage, so if you have ease of mind, you're able to make more sound decisions. So yeah, 6 months minimum.
How or when should someone start saving for retirement?
Oh, so 2010, I got drafted. Everyone's blowing up my phone. Big congratulations. And my dad, I'm Nigerian, so if anyone knows Nigerian parents, they're very strict education. So he was happy for me, but the first thing he said to me, he's like, you're closer to the end of your career than the start of it. And I'm like, thanks. But it made me realize you got to think about what's next. Sports doesn't last forever, and use sports as a vehicle. So yeah, I started saving that day. He kind of forced me, but it was smart decision.
Definitely the sooner the better. I think especially when you're younger and you're not needing as much money to live on a daily basis, having that little amount that's taken out of your check and put towards a 401k or whatever the case is, when you're just not stressed out about it. And then after a while, that stuff grows, and then it's like, oh, I have all this money now that's put aside that I didn't know that I didn't need. So obviously the earlier the better, and just take it out the check and not worry about it.
Yeah, I think it really depends on kind of what your goals are. Some people want to retire early. Some people want to retire later on. Some people might never want to retire. But maybe you have more immediate concerns. You want to buy your first piece of property or something. So it really depends on you as a person, where you fall on that timeline. But saving, putting it towards retirement, whatever it is, the earlier definitely is better.
Is there anything you would want to share with the audience regarding money management?
You're going to make a lot of mistakes, like we all do. It happens. Learn from those. It's very complicated. I'm still on my financial literacy journey. I'm studying for my CFP right now, so I'll be taking that at the end of the year. So there are still a ton of people out there who know a lot more than I do. So just keep educating yourselves. You'll learn as you go through life. You'll learn as you meet new people. Just keep at it. We're all on that journey together.
Yeah, definitely education, of course, but, and I remember what I was going to say earlier, your people and your circle, right? And I say that because oftentimes when we talk about money and you talk about losing it or not expecting, we just went through a pandemic where a lot of people lost their jobs. Do you have people that you can count on in case something were to happen? Do you have people that will loan you some money? Or if you have a credit card that you can't pay back, what's going to happen after that? If you have a job and you lose that job, do you have the savings and stuff for it? So always plan for the worst to happen and then coast when it's not that bad.
I think the biggest thing, we talk about financial literacy, but we don't talk enough about how to make money. And this is why Athletes Unite is so great. There's different vehicles of how we can use sports and other avenues to make money. And then from there, what do we do? So I think that's the biggest thing, allowing, especially athletes that we serve, to not solely focus on professional sports is the only way to make money in this lane. There's many different avenues, but then from there, how can you manage your money properly? And then another thing is that there's levels, and making sure that you understand the level that you're in, not that you can't aspire to a newer level or a higher level, but be solid at your level first and then continue to climb by leveraging resources, information, and your circle.
What's the biggest piece of advice you would give your younger self about financial literacy?
We got, how much time we got? I would just say start earlier. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world for a reason, and just source your information. Matt said it earlier, YouTube, you got FinTalk, and everyone is an expert, but you have to audit the people you get your information from.
Definitely more personal, but I probably would have listened to my dad a little bit more. He was a financial advisor, and that's where I learned most of my financial literacy information. But even though that was a luxury for me, I still didn't, or I still made financial mistakes, right? I still, spent a little too much on something I probably didn't really need. I would also probably tell myself to question if this is something that I really want or something that I need. And also the budgeting kind of goes down to what's a necessity and what's just something you really want. And understanding the difference between that, I think, can help financially a lot, because half the stuff we're getting, we don't really need. So set your goals and then make the changes that you have to make in order to reach those.
Don't get Robin Hood. I wish I told myself to save more. Which is easy to say looking back, but just put more towards the things I wanted to buy earlier on in life. Would have been nice to have, bought a home 2 years ago, but we didn't get that. But just follow the things that I preach now. I don't really know how to quantify that, but just make safer decisions.
What would be the easiest way for someone to start young who may not know much about financial literacy?
Just start putting some away, even if it's under your mattress. Just start saving, and then once you have that built up, you can make decision as to what to do with it. So just put it on your mattress.
Yeah, you can get a copy of Money Lessons with Dad, Jasmine's First Piggy Bank. It's going to be in the booth right when you walk outside. That's a good way to start. But to say, start early, obviously.
Yeah, I'm going to go old school. Warren Buffett. Invest in the S&P 500, or just pick your favorite stock and just put a little bit in there over time. And then as you continue to grow, just source your information, learn information, and go from there.
Any final words, advice?
Advice? No advice, but check out A Frugal Athlete if you want more information about athletes and personal finance. It's great. Everyone's here, supporting Money Talks, and this conference is amazing. So hopefully bigger and better next year.
I'd say final advice is, if you're in this room now, you're either interested in financial literacy, curious about financial literacy, or have questions about it. So talk to us, talk to the people in the room, and use your network. And I would just say whatever questions you have, someone else may have as well. I have a lot of experience just from talking to a ton of people and hearing, oh, this is what they did. That is not what I want to do. Or this is what they did. They made a whole lot of money. Maybe that's something that I want to do. So just ask questions. It's no such thing as a dumb one.
I agree with that. Ask a lot of questions. like I said, don't be too hard on yourself as you go through this. And then talk to people who know what they're talking about. Ask them all the questions you can. So.
I know Jasmine mentioned her booth outside, but what is a way that everyone in the crowd can get in touch if they have any additional questions or wanted to stay in touch?
So I'm like, for my generation, the worst at technology possible. But I do have a LinkedIn. Our company's Equitable Advisors. We do a lot of financial planning for families, small businesses, athletes. So look us up. Happy to connect later. I don't have a book.
I'm Jasmine, the author, on Instagram. All of the books are on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all that fun stuff. And through my nonprofit, Facts for Youth, I do workshops. We do hands-on activities for high school students in churches, other nonprofits, schools, all that fun stuff. So I travel, and I'll come and host a workshop for you if you need it.
Yeah, Jasmine's getting us in trouble. I know Taj is going to kill me. I'm supposed to have a book soon, but we'll see when that's coming. A Frugal Athlete, content around financial literacy with athletes. We do courses, workshops, speaking engagements as well. Yeah, always down to connect, always down to collaborate. I think the more people that talk about financial literacy, the more impact we're going to have. So that's what it's all about.
Well, thank you to our panelists for their wise words and mentorship on Money Talks.
Great job. Great job.